following program is brought to you in living color.
Ladies and gentlemen,
let's do it.
It's my folder.
Via the nether regions of the World Wide Web, broadcasting from the center of the base of the Palm of Michigan, it's the Mike Holder Show.
Big time. And I apologize for them. Oh, welcome to the Mike Holder Show. Let's do this again. Episode number 62, like father. But, you know, that's out the door. That's live radio for you, folks. Yeah. No one to blame but myself. I screwed up. I apologize. Please forgive me. This whole internet web radio thing can be technically a nightmare depending on servers and on certain virtual mixers that don't click. Like Windows 6 or 7 or 8, whatever. 7 or 8. Yeah, 7. They're already built in. Unfortunately, this box I'm using has Vista, so I had to add them in, and I didn't configure them correctly. My apologies. And I should know better. I mean, I started all this computerized automation switching crap. And satellite switching, which we had satellite programming, with switching cues that were sent. Made that run fine, but I get on Spreaker and what a joke. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get with the program. Enough of my whipping myself and... Yeah, whip it. All right, one more time. Thank you, sir. May I have another? All right, enough. On with the show. Like I said, like father, like son. Now, the first part was, of course, we're looking at the two candidates for president. And I look at it like this, okay? Like father, like son. The song that I played from Midnight Oil, which maybe I'll try to get on here in some edited fashion. We'll see what happens. If not, look it up on YouTube. Midnight Oil, Forgotten Years is the name of the song. And the first line of the song is, "Few are the sins of the father that are visited upon the son." And both the candidates' fathers were very much into politics, which usually is the case with a lot of politicians. I mean, look at FDR. Look at John F. Kennedy. Look at John Quincy Adams. Look at a few others whose fathers were in politics. Some of them made it to the presidency, some did not. Oh, yeah, I forgot the big one, Bush. George Bush Sr., George Bush Jr. So politics does run in the family. But is it true that few are the sins of the father that are visited upon the son? You wonder. By the way, everybody, happy Guy Fawkes Day. I said that on the last broadcast, which is now gone, deleted from the servers because it was such a... whatever. So let's get started. let's first deal with the president, because he is the president, and let's talk about his dad, Barack Obama Sr. Barack Hussein Obama Sr., born in 1936, died in 1982. Kenyan senior government economist. An interesting man. Basically, his early life started, of course, in Kenya. His education was in Kenya, as far as grade school, intermediary, and high school. Then he was part of a scholarship program which got him to the U.S., thanks to a political in Kenya, Tom Mboya. Funds originally provided by Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, Jackie Robinson, and Elizabeth Mooney Kirk, who was a literacy advocate who provided most of the financial support for Obama Sr.'s early years in the United States. Funds provided the following year by John F. Kennedy's family paid off the old debts of the project and subsidized student stipends, therefore indirectly benefiting Obama Sr. and other members of that group when he went in 1959. Now, during the 2008 campaign, Barack Jr., his son, running for president at the time, said that the Kennedys organized the initial 1959 student airlift, which was an error, subsequently acknowledged by his campaign spokesman. Now, when Obama Sr. left for America, he was married. He left behind a baby son, Malik, and a young wife, Kezia, who was pregnant with their daughter, Auma. Went to Hawaii, enrolled at the University of Hawaii in Honolulu as the university's first African foreign student. He lived at the YMCA across the street. Public records from 2 years later indicate he had a residence 2 miles southeast of the university. And, of course, that's where he met Dunham, all right, the wife. And basically, they married in 1960 and then had a child, which was, of course, Barack Jr. Went to Harvard in 62. Then after he finished up in Harvard at 65 with a degree in economics, at that time he met and began dating a Jewish American elementary school teacher. So basically left Barack and Mom behind. Yeah, this guy really, he was a good dad figure. Then he went back to Kenya, was hired by an oil company, and served as their economist, and then became an economist in the Kenyan Ministry of Transport, then the senior economist to the Kenyan Ministry of Finance. Then Tom Mboya kind of fell out of favor with the government there. New president was elected, Jomo Kenyatta. Basically, Tom Mboya was assassinated in 1969, and President Jomo Kenyatta fired Obama Sr. from his job. Then he was blacklisted in Kenya, became an alcoholic, had a serious car accident, spent a year in a hospital, had a bad leg, and then met up with his son back in Hawaii in 1971. Had another car accident where he lost both his legs, and then lost his job with a Kenyan newspaper he had called the Daily Nation. Then he fathered another son named George. Then 6 months after George's birth, he died in a third car crash in Nairobi. So there is the history of the father of our current president of the United States. Now, we'll get to the next dad on the other end, but first, what are we going to do first? Yeah, we'll play it again. I mean, it's a good ad. This is my friend out in California. Used to be a Detroit broadcaster, worked for quite a number of people. Voice guy extraordinaire, impressionist extraordinaire. My main man E out there in California. This is something he put together recently to kind of educate us on how to vote on these stinking propositions that keep filling our ballots on Election Day.
If we asked if you've seen the ads supporting Proposition No, you'd probably say yes, if you're in the know. But how do you know if a yes vote on no will work? Something this complicated can't really be a yes-no question, no? Yes, it isn't. So the answer is no. You could vote yes on no if you're a yes person. But if you're sick of hearing no to better schools and no lower taxes on working families, voting yes means you really don't know. Know this: no voter knows less than a yes person. You understand yes? So say yes by voting no on Prop No, because a yes means no, and that's a no-no, you know?
Thanks, E. That was good. First time I heard it cracks me up. Still cracks me up now. Thank you, E. So did you figure it out yet?
Great googly moogly.
Yeah, we got 6 propositions on the ballot here in Michigan. From collective bargaining for state workers to whether or not we should have a vote on whether a new bridge gets built between us and Canada. It's crazy. How the politics runs thick. I'll be glad when it's all over. You know? If Obama wins, I'm leaving the country. Romney wins, I'm leaving the country. Now, I'm not trying to be political with all that. I just want a vacation. All right. Now, let's talk about the dad of the challenger, Mitt Romney. His dad, George Wilkin Romney. Born in 1907, died in 1995. I know quite a bit about the history of George because I'm a Michigander, and he was the governor of our state from 1962. Or I should say 19... From 69 to 73 under Nixon. Massachusetts. He was born to American parents living in Mormon colonies in Mexico. Back then was considered the territory of Utah, which later, of course, became the state of Utah. They wound up in Salt Lake City, struggled during the Great Depression. He worked a number of jobs, served as a Mormon missionary. In 1939, he moved to Detroit, joined the American Automobile Manufacturers Association, where he served as the chief spokesman for the auto industry during World War II and headed the corporate management where companies could share production improvements and also auto companies being involved in the war effort during World War II, such as Willow Run and the Ford Motor Company building B-29. In 1948, then became the chief executive of the successor of Nash Galvanier, which became American Motors Corporation in 1954. Then he turned that struggling auto firm into a big auto firm, which threatened the big three, GM, Ford, and Chrysler. His thing was to make more fuel-efficient cars. Yes, back then in the late 50s, early 60s. He was one of the first high-profile, media-savvy business executives using media to market his product. Then he was elected governor in 62, served till 69, ran for president, or was a candidate for president, and was doing pretty well in the beginning until a certain interview that he had got dragged up. Basically, this interview was done in Detroit on a very popular talk program back on WKBD, Channel 50. Program's host was Lou Gordon. Lou Gordon, known nationally as an intense interviewer. His style of interviewing, his style of program helped shape, as a pioneer, some programs to come about later, such as 60 Minutes, Dateline NBC, and basically was the forerunner of those type of programs. Phil Donahue, and all sorts of other interviewers, even up to Maury Povich. Although I don't think Lou Gordon ever was trying to find out who the baby daddy was. So we do have media for George, although we did not have any kind of media for Barack Obama Sr. I scoured for several days looking for any kind of audio bite, clip, anything this man said that could have been recorded or filmed. There was nothing. But with George, there was a lot. Here's a slight bit, about 2 minutes long, from his interview on the Lou Gordon program. This took place on August 31st, 1967, and this is the infamous brainwashing quote. Basically, in the beginning, Romney was for the war in Vietnam. He supported it, but then he went to Vietnam and saw what a utter waste it was, and then changed his position. Basically doing the same thing that some other journalists did, including one Walter Cronkite, who was first for the war and supported Lyndon Baines Johnson, but then after going to Vietnam and doing a story there, he basically did LBJ in and said that we'd never win. And Romney did the same thing, but because Romney was a politician, it was a liability for him, where Cronkite had no liability. Here's that interview. August 31st, 1967, WKBD, Channel 50, in the Lou Gordon program. Here's that segment.
Governor, shifting to Vietnam in November of 1965, when you returned from Vietnam, you said, and I'm quoting, "Involvement was morally right and necessary and probably reversed the shift in the balance of power greater than if Hitler had conquered Europe." In recent weeks, you said you didn't think we should have been involved at all, and that President Johnson's decision to expand the bombing wasn't going to resolve the problem. Isn't your position a bit inconsistent with what it was, and what do you propose we do now?
Well, you know, when I came back from Vietnam, I just had the greatest brainwashing that anybody can get.
By the generals?
When you go over to Vietnam, well, not only by the generals, but also by the diplomatic corps over there. And they do a very thorough job. And since returning from Vietnam, I've gone into the history of Vietnam all the way back into World War II and before. And as a result, I have changed my mind in that particular. I no longer believe that it was necessary for us to get involved in South Vietnam to stop communist aggression in Southeast Asia and to prevent communist domination Chinese communist domination of Southeast Asia. And I've indicated that I think it was tragic that we became involved in the conflict there, and that if General Eisenhower had remained President of the United States, I don't think we would have become involved in a land war in Southeast Asia. But despite that fact, we're there, we are involved, we have created this into a conflict that is now a test between communism and freedom there, and this is part of the complexity and difficulty of the situation. And furthermore, we've involved other nations in Southeast Asia, and we have to deal with it on the basis of the current circumstances rather than on what might have been if there hadn't been an overreaction in military terms in dealing with the Vietnamese problem.
There you go. George Romney. August 31st, 1967. Yes, he changed his mind. Does that make him a flip-flopper? I don't know. Back in Vietnam times, there was a lot of selling that the Vietnam War was good. Johnson did that, but it turned out it really wasn't, and history shows us that it wasn't. It was a mistake for us to do that. We had to leave. Tet Offensive happened, and we had to withdraw. For Romney to change his mind, I think was good. His explanation, it's plausible. His choice of word as far as brainwashing was not good back in 67, 68, and that did him in as far as running for president. But he made a couple of references there that, first off, after he came back and after he made the comment that he thought the war was right, he did some research. And he looked at the whole thing, and he made an interesting comment that if Eisenhower had remained as president for 2 terms, which he did not, we probably wouldn't have been involved in Vietnam at all. Interesting. That seems pretty plausible because Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex, of which has brought about war after war after war after war ever since. Politicians can change ideas, especially when they're proven wrong by their own research or if somebody else says, hey, look, you're wrong. But the thing was, Romney, in that, didn't do the political dance saying, no, I didn't change my mind. He didn't ignore the fact. He said, I changed my mind, period. It takes a man to finally say, look, I made a mistake. I changed my mind, and this is how I think now. Something you don't hear a lot of politicians do nowadays. Maybe this is part of the reason Mitt changes his mind about stuff, although he does not admit and say, look, I saw the facts and I changed my mind. If Mitt would say those words, he'd probably be a lot more plausible right now. Anyway, there was that interview. And then during the 1992 election, when you had Bill Clinton win and go to the White House, George Romney did an interview with Richard Hefner on a program back then. And here he talks about the change that our country has made since it was formed and how things have changed. And it specifically talks about how we as citizens of the country now depend on the government for everything instead of helping each other out. We've lost helping our fellow man, and we all turn to the government to solve our problems. Here's George Romney from that interview in 1992.
If I had to identify what I think are our most serious, as our most serious threat, it wouldn't be in the economic area, it wouldn't be in the political area, it'd be in the social area. I think these horrendous social problems that we face are undermining every other aspect of American life.
How would you identify those problems?
Well, you start out with the departure from the fundamental principle on which the country was based. The fundamental principle on which the country was based, the Declaration of Independence, and then consent of the governed. In 1948, I concluded that the people of this country didn't appreciate this third sector we have that de Tocqueville talked about so much in his history of America. He said that the most unusual thing about our country was that as people faced problems, they didn't turn first to government. They turned first to their fellow citizens, and they organized some association or voluntary means of dealing with the problem. And I became convinced way back then that this was the least recognized and the least organized and therefore the least utilized aspect of our society for problem-solving purposes. What did we have originally when the Constitution was written? They asked Franklin, what have you given us? He said, we've given you a republic, and if you can keep it. Now, we didn't keep it. As a result of various changes that were made to change the representative character of the structure that they created, we created a democracy. And in my opinion, we no longer have a democracy. We've got a special interest democracy, a political process that's dominated by the special interests. That's why they can't deal with this deficit. The presidents for some time have recommended getting rid of programs that are obsolete, should have been eliminated many years ago. They can't get them eliminated because there are enough people benefiting from the program that they're trying to get eliminated so that they can't get the votes in Congress. As Senator Long of Louisiana said, don't cut me and don't cut thee, but cut that guy behind the tree. In other words, cut everybody else but my constituents. Let's take a look at what President Ford said. President Ford made a very honest statement when he made his first talk to Congress. He said, when I was a representative of the Grand Rapids District, I went after every dollar I could get for my district because that was a worthwhile public investment. And then he turned to the Speaker of the House, a Democrat, Speaker Albert, and he said, but I opposed every dollar you went after for your district because that was pork barrel waste. Now, I've seen the federal government balloon to proportions that are way beyond everything conceived by the founders, and in my opinion, completely in violation of the 10th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, which only gives the federal government the power not reserved for the states and the people. Well, the states are just almost satellites of the federal government now.
Some very interesting words from our former governor here in Michigan, George Romney, the father of candidate Mitt Romney, or as I affectionately call him, Mutt. Because he's kind of a mutt of his dad, if you look at it. He's got the heart of his dad. He's got some of the principles, like as far as the social condition. He agrees with that. And it's true. We have become a society that's dependent on our government. And our government just wants to get every dollar they can for themselves and for their things. And yes, it has ballooned beyond proportions, as he said. And this was in 1992. And of course, after that, Bill Clinton balanced the budget for several years. But now it's way out of control again. Because of what? Special interests. And Congress mucking it up. You have to have a president in the driver's seat to take care of Congress. Where are presidents today like we had back with Harry Truman? Harry Truman. He was a Democrat. He had a Republican House and Senate. And he got agreement. He got things to work. And he was one of the first presidents to come up with a plan for national health care. That was plausible, but back then it was laughed at. But still, to have the balls and to say, look, the buck stops here. When things go wrong, I'm the one to blame, you know. It falls on my shoulders. I haven't heard a president do that in a long time. When something goes wrong, they look for scapegoats. Oh, it was the Secretary of Defense, it was Secretary of State, it was this department, it was that department. The whole Benghazi thing, the White House basically said, oh, it was the CIA's fault, it was Department of State's fault, it was the private contractor's fault, it was this video's fault. Whatever. Stop playing the blame game and stop throwing people under the bus and just take responsibility for stuff. Whoever you're voting for tomorrow, I hope that guy wins, because you know what? A lot of people are going to realize because of their beliefs or their views. The old Staple Singer song. If you don't respect yourself, you don't respect others, don't expect them to respect you. If you don't respect yourself, you can't respect others. Make sure you vote tomorrow. Vote your conscience, not popular, not who looks good, not by any standard other than who will do the best job. That's what counts. Probably going to take the day off tomorrow because I need to. Until next time, Mike Holder's saying keep looking forward and always keep looking upward.
I can't take it anymore!